Harris has seen a surge in popularity since replacing Joe Biden atop the ticket last month. Her favorability rating has increased 13 percentage points since June. Flooding in the eastern districts of Bangladesh, which is facing political turmoil after violent protests forced Sheikh Hasina to resign as PM and flee to India, were not caused by the opening of a dam on the Gumti River in Tripura. This is what the government has clarified. Defence Minister Rajat Singh is set to visit the United States till the 26th of August. This comes as several high-end defence deals between India and the US are in the final stages of conclusion. India's star javelin thrower Neeraj Chopra finished second in the Lausanne Diamond League as he recovered in time to produce the season's best effort of 89.49 meters in his last attempt. Thailand became actually the first country in Asia to detect the new mutated strain of the Mpox virus as the pathogen spreads to more geographies after the World Health Organization declared the outbreak in Africa a new global health emergency. US visits this week by Taiwan's top government officials and Tibet's exiled spiritual leader are likely to irritate China and further inflame tensions between Beijing and Washington, as per reports. The secret meeting between Taipei and Washington, which neither the White House nor Taiwan's de facto US embassy confirmed took place, is one of the most sensitive and important mechanisms in global politics. This is what a former White House Asia advisor has told local media. Well, our big focus, balancing India's position on the Russia-Ukraine war, will be at the top of the agenda for our Prime Minister as he arrives by train in Kyiv. This is the first such high-level visit from India since the war began in 2022. But this trip comes 6 weeks after he visited Moscow and also met with President Vladimir Putin. The outcomes of the visit will also be weighed carefully and be watched closely by both Washington and Moscow, especially given Ukraine's disappointments with India's position in the past. By the way, our Prime Minister is one of the very few leaders to have personally visited both Kyiv and Moscow during the war, apart from leaders of Turkey, South Africa, Indonesia and Hungary. My colleague Vishnu Shom is on ground zero. He sent us this report.
It's one of the most incredible examples of Indian entrepreneurship anywhere perhaps in the world. More than 3 decades back, a young Indian, Rajiv Gupta, came to Ukraine with what about a couple of $100 in his pocket. He now runs one of the largest pharmaceutical companies in this country. 40% of all Indian pharmaceuticals sold in Ukraine come from Kusum Enterprises, from Kusum Pharma, and he joins us over here. $200 is all that you came with, right?
Yeah, that was a big money for that time.
It's still big money now, but that said, you now employ 1,000 odd people in this country and you continue to operate despite the war. How difficult has it been?
It was a bit difficult initially, but if you see the courage of local people, you feel like, no, you can continue. Why not?
And you employ how many people over here?
1,100.
We've seen the Indian community over here, by which I mean students, of course, leave en masse a couple of years back. You helped out in that process. There's a small Indian community in Kyiv as well, right? Did they all stay behind or have they all gone back?
I think maybe up to 10 families left behind it.
And how many families were there earlier?
More than 500 people.
Yeah.
But currently, I think maybe up to 20 people are living in Ukraine. It's a bit, you have to get used to sirens, air attacks, alerts,
What does that feel like? Because I'm coming over here after 2 years, and the first thing I heard as we drove into, as our train came into Kiev, was an air raid siren. The train stopped for a few moments, then carried on going. And then I heard it again today. And I remember what it was like 2 years back. That's not changed. It's become worse in a sense.
You're getting used to this. Like Vishnu, if you start from the yesterday evening till now, 69 drone attacks. was taking place. Kyiv is a bit safer city. I think one of the most safest city as far as warfare is concerned.
We have our Prime Minister coming into Ukraine as well. Do you believe some out-of-the-box solutions are welcome, are important? Are you hopeful of something like that happening?
Let's hope for the best. I cannot say anything, about this. This is really difficult time,
Yeah.
So let's hope that something will come out of this visit.
Right. It's been wonderful speaking to you. Thank you so much indeed. There you have it, Rajiv Gupta, an entrepreneur over here for so many decades, doing incredible work in the pharma industry. These medicines go to save lives at a time when routes into and out of Ukraine are so very difficult, even within the country, to ensure that basic medicines reach the right people. It's saving lives in a very direct way. Thanks very much.
Thank you
for speaking to us. Thank you very much.
Indeed. Thank you.
Well, in other news, Defence Minister Rajat Singh is set to visit the United States till the 26th of August. And this visit comes as several high-end defence deals between India and the United States are in the final stages of conclusion. The visit comes as several high-end defence deals are lined up, but also friction over issues like the Prime Minister's visit to Russia and the Pannu episode. In addition, a key concern for the Defence Ministry at the moment is a delay in deliveries from General Electric of the F-404 engines for the indigenous light combat aircraft, which has held up deliveries of the jets by Hindustan Aeronautics Limited to the Indian Air Force. With that, let's turn our attention now to the Democratic Presidential Convention, currently in Chicago. Well, Kamala Harris, for her, she's getting ready to give the biggest political speech of her life. The US Vice President has prepared to deliver the most important speech of her life in formally accepting the Democratic nomination for president to cap a quick and seemingly improbable turn of political events that propelled her into the spotlight. Now, Kamala Harris's acceptance speech comes just 56 days after Joe Biden's halting and stumbling performance in a debate against former Republican President Donald Trump forced the president into a defensive posture amid warnings from party leaders that both his re-election chances and those of Democrats down the ballot were in jeopardy. And it was only 32 days ago when Biden announced his surprise decision to drop out of the race and endorse Kamala Harris as his successor for the nomination. We have a reaction from Elizabeth Warren lined up for you. Listen in.
You know what I love best about Kamala Harris? Kamala Harris can't be bought and she can't be bossed around. Donald Trump, the felon, has no plans to lower costs for families. He doesn't know how, and basically, he doesn't really care. When did he ever fill up a gas tank or worry about a grocery bill? The only bills he worries about are from his criminal defense lawyers.
Well, Voice of America's Kane Faribault joins us with a live update from the DNC. As always, Kane, it's always a pleasure to chat with you. Now, Kane, will Kamala try to show that she's different from Joe Biden without really departing meaningfully from his core agenda?
Well, that's really a goal of her speech, and this is also the opportunity for her to sort of outline those positions. It's her ability to be able now to express to this audience of thousands of delegates that are here at the Democratic National Convention what actually sets her apart from her predecessor. It's actually clear to a lot of the Democrats here what sets her apart from former President Donald Trump on the Republican side. But there's a lot of kitchen table issues that people here are absolutely concerned about. They're actually concerned about rising inflation, which actually has increased the cost of everything from the food on the table to the clothing that people purchase. People are concerned about border security. This is an issue that is definitely something that the Republicans are making sure that they attach to Kamala Harris. And so this is an opportunity for her to also sort of outline positions that she is going to be different in some way from the Biden administration in the way that she's going to tackle the perceived issues at the border as well as the real issues at the border. But also, too, this is an opportunity for her to express a message that appeals to voters in general. And we've seen some excerpts from her speech in advance of her speaking. And she has expressed this initiative in which she wants to tell everybody that she is going to be a president for all people, Republicans, Democrats, Independents. She wants to sort of I guess, provide this or engender this sort of feeling that she's the candidate that's going to try to unite the country rather than continue to divide.
Right, but interestingly, Kane, major polls since Kamala Harris's campaign rocketed to life last month tell a conflicting story. The Washington Post ABC survey finds Donald Trump with an advantage on the economy, but the Financial Times indicates she's closed the gap. But where do voters really stand? What have you been able to pick up on?
Well, if you followed American politics over the last 14 years, polling isn't necessarily as objective or as accurate as we would like it to be. And I think that if we're going to rely simply on polling to tell us where the numbers are, that's not really getting to the heart of the electorate. Look, there's a margin of error in polls because of that, right? And so it's clear that Kamala Harris has definitely closed the gap with former President Donald Trump on a lot of other key issues. And just as, as a general rule, generally among people as their preferred candidate. But I think that we're really not going to be able to discern what the actual numbers are until actually the voting is complete and everybody sort of runs through those numbers about what was the effective messaging or what isn't. But it is clear that in order to make sure you get those independent voters out that don't actually subscribe to the Republican Party or the Democratic Party, you have to appeal to some of the issues. And one of them is going to be how basically she's going to handle or at least tackle economic concerns.
Right. In fact, many are calling Kamala Harris's economic agenda the Harris Goldilocks economic agenda. Kane, take us through some of the policies she's backing, and also has her team made up their mind to back the $15 minimum wage? Any progress on Medicare expansion?
Yeah, well, one thing she wants to do is she wants to make housing here in the United States affordable. She's expressed some ideas about what she wants to do there. Price gouging is another concern that the campaign has indicated they want to tackle. Some of the concerns here, especially with the rising inflation, is that as prices went up, but yet interest rates come down, the price of the goods that went up doesn't come back down. Once you've established a price, people that are selling things want to keep those profits. And so there's an initiative by the administration to address those concerns that Americans have. And, housing in this country has become very expensive, with interest rates increasing along with inflation. Yes. In order to purchase a home here in the United States, the interest rates that we're seeing here are anywhere between 5% and 7%. Whereas just about 2 or 3 years ago, those interest rates were at 2.5%. So it's much more expensive to buy a home. So there are some initiatives that the campaign will roll out in the coming weeks to appeal to those American voters that want to buy a house right now but can't because it's too expensive.
Well, Kamala Harris will signal whether her campaign will run hard away from Joe Biden's unpopular economic leadership, many would argue, or try to take credit for a record that's resulted in robust growth despite signs of flagging voter confidence. Kane Faribault, always a pleasure to get your updates live from the DNC. Thanks so much for joining us. Well, with that, let's turn our attention now to Thailand, which has become the first country in Asia to detect the new mutated strain of the Mpox virus as the pathogen spreads to more geographies after the World Health Organization declared the outbreak in Africa a new global health emergency. The patient who tested positive was a European male who arrived in Bangkok last week from Africa. This is according to the Department of Disease Control of Thailand's Health Ministry. But authorities have identified 43 close contacts of the 66-year-old patient and now put them under surveillance. With that, let's get you news from the neighborhood, from Bangladesh now, where relentless monsoon rains and flooding have stranded nearly 3 million people and killed 2, submerging vast areas and damaging homes and infrastructure as well. But as far as the most affected districts are concerned, well, Feni, Molvi-Bazar, Habiganj, Comilla and Chittagong, these are some of the districts where major rivers were flowing above the danger levels as per the Flood Forecasting and Warning Center. Well, in news now from the UK, women of Indian origin from London, Cambridge, Oxford, especially doctors, scientists, engineers, businesswomen, they actually reached the British Parliament to protest against the alleged delay in justice for the 31-year-old junior doctor who was raped and murdered in West Bengal's Kolkata. Solutions for sustainable safety were discussed, even as women, men, young people poured their anger and frustration over repeated assaults against women. My colleague Radhika Iyer reports from London.
From RG Car to the British Parliament, the rage, the frustration, the anger, the emotions don't seem to die down. And why should it? Because here, just outside the British Parliament, are so many female doctors, women, who have come out on a working day to protest against what has happened in Kolkata, what is happening every day in India, and also not just to demand justice, but also perhaps have those constructive conversations on how to have strategy, solutions in place to make sure women are safe, not for a day, not only at workplace, but beyond. And to talk about this particular protest that has been happening, I'm going to go across to Deepthi first. And as I introduce Deepthi and some other doctors who've gathered here, please see what's happening here just outside the British Parliament. Here are tea lights being lit up, a candlelight protest, a peaceful protest that's underway. What are you trying to form or write?
We are writing justice. And we are doing with the tea lights so that it is more vibrant and everybody can see what we are asking for. Yes.
So today, this one is the London group, and I think this will probably be the largest group today. Manchester, again, we are expecting about 100, 150 turning up. Birmingham, same amount. Glasgow, Edinburgh, Newcastle, all the Leicester. I think so we had 16 cities have joined, and I found it most difficult to find a contact in Dublin, and we managed to get the contact, and they too are joining.
So these are all working professionals on a weekday who are protesting miles and miles away from Kolkata.
Yes,
sharing the same sentiment of seeking justice, of seeking answers, at least understanding what exactly happened with this young 31-year-old, and hopefully having those meaningful conversations for better safety in a sustainable way.
I think so. That is the hope.
Yeah.
That's hope we live in.
Thank you.
Meanwhile, competing in his first event after the Paris Olympics, Neeraj Chopra came up with a stellar performance to finish second at the Lausanne Diamond League. Neeraj Chopra threw his season best of 89.49 meters to finish in the second place. Grenada's Anderson Peters came first with a throw of 90.61 meters, which is also what meets the record.
Yet to break the magical 90 meters, which Nadeem did on,
Well, news and updates continue in a moment. Right after this very short break, do stay tuned.
Stay informed and entertained with the new and updated NDTV News app. You can watch all our channels live, listen to podcasts, read breaking and exclusive news from around the world and more. Download the NDTV app today and get access to the best journalism and storytelling on your smartphone or tablet. The NDTV app. News that matters to you.
Hi, I'm Shreya Saran. Kerala's Wayanad area is hit by devastating landslides, resulting in loss of lives and livelihood. Kerala needs your help right now. Let's join NDTV initiative. Come, donate. Let's rebuild Wayanad.
Some people say the metaverse will only be virtual. One day this lecture hall will be made of code, and driverless cars would be trapped in intersections. But even in this maze of the future, You can't wish away health. It's time to become more resilient. "10 years of Banega Swasth India, we have grown and achieved so many milestones. And now I have a plan to beat the urgency, to stop breathing with difficulty, to relieve getting choked with inactivity. Energize our government, our environment, our society, and ourselves. Everyone, everywhere, every day. Banega Swasth India. One world hygiene.
Welcome back. India and the EU hosted a conference on combating terrorism. On day 2 of this regional conference, the key focus was on current and emerging threats in online radicalization, and the discussions were held on countering online exploitation. Policymakers, academics, law enforcement officials were all in attendance. My colleague Mohammed Ghazali reports.
Global conflict is rising, with two most important centers like the Europe and the Middle East is facing a lot of conflict between and among the countries. Now, how to tackle this on online media, because the parties or the armies are not just fighting on the battlefield but also on social media, and how to tackle this social media misinformation. To explain and share the tips and tricks of that, I'm joined here by an Estonian police officer, Maria Punik. She will tell us that how in her country or how she is combating this rise of misinformation on social media. Thanks for joining us on NDTV, Maria. First of all, do tell us that with this war between Ukraine and Russia happening for the last 2.5 years or more than that now, how your team in Estonia is combating, or to say fighting, the misinformation on social media.
Yeah, we actually got a lot of people from Ukraine to Estonia as refugees, so it means we are also target for Russian propaganda, misinformation, disinformation, and we needed to take action. But in Estonia we have this specific problem that the Estonian language is so different from other languages that we can't use specific tools for that, because it would be too expensive to create them, or like let others to create them. So we use human power. So we actually use police officers who are kind of like influencers who work in social media in different platforms like Facebook, like Snapchat, like YouTube, etc. So we are there for the people, and if they report us or we will see misinformation or disinformation, we will take action. So we will contact the platform, or we will contact the person who is sharing this like news or this story which is fake, and we ask them to remove it, or even we take action and we send it to the investigators if there is something, you know, so bad that it needs to be investigated and they might get a punishment.
Meanwhile, US visits this week by Taiwan's top government officials and Tibet's exiled spiritual leader Dalai Lama are likely to irritate China and further inflame tensions between Beijing and Washington, as per reports. The secret meeting between Taipei and Washington, which, by the way, neither the White House nor Taiwan's de facto US embassy confirmed took place, is one of the most sensitive and important mechanisms in global politics today. This is what a former White House and Asia advisor has argued and informed local media. Meanwhile, Indonesian lawmakers scrapped plans to revise the country's election laws after widespread protests this week. Critics said the plan was outgoing President Joko Widodo's attempt at consolidating power by blocking a vocal critic from running for the post of Jakarta's governor and making it easier for Widodo's youngest son to run for local office. Foreign investors have approved of Mr. Widodo's handling of the Southeast Asian country's economy for a decade, but voters have grown increasingly frustrated with his attempts at retaining power, including tapping his eldest son to be vice president in the next administration. Analysts argue the people are angry at the ongoing manipulation of their democratic system. Well, thank you for investing your time in watching this edition of The World 24/7. We'll keep tracking the latest updates for you. Do stay tuned.
Landslide devastation in Kerala's Wayanad. Join NDTV's initiative. Donate for Kerala.
This week on India Ascents. Prime Minister Modi in Ukraine. Is New Delhi now a key voice in global conflicts? DNC nominates Kamala Harris to take on Donald Trump. Can the selected candidate woo the fence-sitters? And India's new data protection norms, will they help keep pace with the AI transition? All this and more only on India Ascents with me, Gauri Dwivedi, at these timings on the NDTV network.
Stay informed and entertained with the new and updated NDTV News app. You can watch all our channels live, listen to podcasts, read breaking and exclusive news,